Rain-soaked and shivering, Arya pressed herself against the alley wall, counting her breaths to stay conscious, until a child's terrified scream shattered the night, and her broken Omega instincts roared to life for the first time in 3 years. The storm had turned vicious an hour ago. Arya should have been inside the packhouse kitchen, huddled near the ovens with the other staff, but she'd learned long ago that making herself scarce during pack gatherings meant fewer questions, fewer stares, fewer whispers about the Omega whose wolf had simply stopped. Thunder cracked overhead, so loud it rattled her teeth. She pulled her thin jacket tighter, knowing it was useless. The rain had already soaked through to her skin, and her fingers had gone numb. Just a few more minutes, she told herself. Just until the Alpha's dinner party ended and she could slip back inside to clean up. Then she heard it. A child's scream, high and terrified, barely audible over the howling wind. Arya's head snapped up. For 3 years, she'd felt nothing from her wolf. No stirring, no whisper, not even a flicker of the bond that should have been as natural as breathing. The rejection had broken something fundamental inside her, severed the connection to her wolf so completely that healers had stopped trying to fix it. But now something ancient and primal clawed its way through her chest. The scream came again. Her legs were moving before her brain caught up. She stumbled out of the alley, rain lashing her face, following the sound toward the river that bordered Silvercrest territory. The storm had swollen it to twice its normal size, angry water churning against the banks. "Help. Please. Mama." The voice was so small, so scared. Arya skidded down the muddy embankment, her boots sliding on wet grass. Lightning flashed, illuminating the scene in stark white light. A massive oak tree had fallen, its branches creating a cage of debris near the water's edge. And trapped underneath, barely visible through the tangle of limbs, a child. A pup. Couldn't be more than 5 years old. "Hold on," Arya shouted, though her voice was lost in the storm. She dropped to her knees beside the debris, ignoring the way the river spray soaked her completely. The pup was crying, his dark hair plastered to his face, his small hands reaching through the branches toward her. The tree had pinned him but hadn't crushed him, yet. The ground beneath was soft from the rain, slowly giving way. If the tree shifted even slightly, it would drive him into the mud or roll him straight into the river. Arya grabbed the nearest branch and pulled. It didn't budge. She tried another angle, bracing her feet against the slick ground. Her muscles screamed in protest. She'd always been small, even for an Omega, and 3 years of barely eating had left her weak. Without her wolf, she had no supernatural strength to draw on. "It's okay," she called to the pup, forcing her voice to stay calm. "I'm going to get you out." "It hurts," he whimpered. "I want my mama." Something in Arya's chest cracked open. She'd felt hollow for so long that she'd forgotten what it was like to feel anything at all. But looking at this terrified child, she felt a surge of something fierce and protective and absolutely unbreakable. She wedged herself between 2 branches, using her whole body as leverage. Her shoulders burned. Her hands were bleeding, torn up by the bark. She didn't care. The branch shifted an inch. "That's it," she panted. "Just a little more." Lightning struck somewhere close, the boom of thunder immediate. The pup screamed, and Arya's heart hammered against her ribs. She could smell the rain, the earth, the sharp ozone scent of the storm, and underneath it, the pup's fear. She heaved with everything she had. The branch gave way suddenly, and she fell backward into the mud. But it was enough. The gap was wide enough. "Come here, sweetheart," she said, reaching through the opening. "Take my hand." The pup grabbed onto her with both hands, and she pulled him free, lifting him against her chest. He was so light, trembling so hard she could feel it through both their soaked clothes. He buried his face against her neck, sobbing. "I've got you," Arya whispered, wrapping her arms around him. "You're safe now." She needed to move, to get them both away from the river, but her legs were shaking. The adrenaline that had carried her this far was fading fast, leaving behind only exhaustion and pain. She'd already been running on empty before this. The pup's arms tightened around her neck. "Don't leave me," he whimpered. "Never," Arya heard herself say. She started to stand, cradling him close, when the world lit up white. The lightning strike was so close she felt the heat of it. She looked up just in time to see another tree, an enormous pine that had stood on the riverbank for probably a century, crack down the middle. It fell in terrible slow motion, its burning crown heading straight for them. Arya's body moved on pure instinct. She twisted, throwing herself over the pup, curling around him as tightly as she could. Her back hit the mud, the child protected beneath her. She felt the impact as a distant thing. Heat and crushing weight and pain that turned her vision white. The pup was screaming again, or maybe that was her, she couldn't tell. Her ears were ringing, and her body wasn't responding to her commands anymore. But the pup's arms were still around her neck. She could feel his heart beating against her chest, rapid and strong. He was alive. She'd done it. Darkness crept in at the edges of her vision. She tried to fight it, but she was so tired, and the pain was fading into numbness. Maybe that was bad. She thought it was probably bad. "Mama," the pup was saying, but his voice sounded far away. "Wake up. Please wake up." Arya wanted to tell him it was okay, that help would come, that someone would find them. But her mouth wouldn't form the words. The last thing she felt was his tiny arms squeezing tighter, holding on like she was the only solid thing in a world that had turned to storm and chaos. Then nothing. Consciousness returned in pieces. Pain first. Sharp and hot across her back and shoulders, a deep ache that radiated through her entire body. Then cold. Gods, she was so cold. Then voices. "Don't know how long they've been out here. Get the Alpha. Just a kitchen Omega." Arya tried to open her eyes, but they felt glued shut. Someone was touching her, checking for injuries, their hands clinical and efficient. A healer, probably. "The pup," she managed to croak out. "Shoo, don't try to talk." The healer's voice was kind but distant. "You're badly injured." "The child," Arya insisted, forcing her eyes open despite the way it made her head spin. "Is he?" "The boy is fine. Thanks to you." A different voice now, male and carrying authority. "Though I'd like to know what one of my kitchen staff was doing out in this storm in the first place." Beta Marcus. Arya recognized his scent even through the rain and blood. She tried to focus on his face, but her vision was blurry. "Heard him screaming," she said. Each word was an effort. "Couldn't leave him." Apparently not. Something in his tone had shifted. Even broken Omegas have their uses, it seems. The words stung, but Arya was too tired to care. She'd heard worse in the 3 years since her rejection. At least the pup was safe. That was all that mattered. "The child," she said again. "Where?" "Being cared for. Though we have no idea who he belongs to. No identification, and he's too traumatized to speak. We'll figure it out in the morning." Marcus paused. "You should rest. The healers will do what they can." Arya felt herself being lifted, felt the jolt of pain as they moved her. But she kept her eyes on the small figure wrapped in blankets nearby, watched by another pack member. Even from here, she could see him watching her too, his dark eyes huge in his pale face. As her vision started to fade again, one of the blankets slipped, and Arya caught a glimpse of the pup's upper arm. A birthmark. Small and distinct, shaped like a crescent moon. She didn't know why that felt important. Her thoughts were getting fuzzy, the pain medication someone had given her starting to work. But she filed it away in some corner of her mind that was still functioning. Crescent moon. The pup had a crescent moon birthmark. Then the darkness pulled her under again, and this time, she let it. Wanting to see what would happen next, subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. Chapter 2. The first thing Arya noticed was softness. After 3 years of sleeping on a thin cot in the servants' quarters, her body recognized luxury before her mind caught up. The sheets were silk, actual silk, smooth and cool against her skin. The mattress cradled her like a cloud, and the pillow beneath her head smelled faintly of lavender. The second thing she noticed was that she could breathe without pain. Arya's eyes flew open. The ceiling above her was vaulted and painted with murals of wolves running beneath a full moon. Gold leaf caught the morning light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. She turned her head slowly, taking in the enormous room, easily the size of the entire kitchen where she worked. Worked. Past tense, probably. After disappearing during the Alpha's dinner party and nearly getting herself killed, she doubted she still had a job. She tried to sit up and was surprised when her body obeyed. The crushing pain that had swallowed her by the river was gone, replaced by a dull ache. Someone had healed her. Really healed her, not just patched her up enough to get back to work. Arya looked down at herself and froze. She was dressed in a silk nightgown that probably cost more than she made in a year. Her hands were bandaged with clean white gauze, and she could feel similar wrappings on her back and shoulders beneath the gown. Her hair had been washed and braided. Where the hell was she? The room smelled wrong. Not bad, gods, no. It smelled like pine forests and aged leather, like wood smoke and something darker, more primal. Power. The kind of concentrated dominance that made her hindbrain want to either submit or flee. An alpha's scent. But not just any alpha. Deep in her chest, something stirred. Arya's breath caught. Her wolf. The presence that had been silent and still as death for 3 years suddenly flickered to life like an ember in ashes. It was faint, barely there, but it was something. The door slammed open. Arya flinched, pulling the silk sheets up to her chin as a man filled the doorway. And when she said filled, she meant it. He was massive, easily 6.5 feet of solid muscle and lethal grace. Dark hair fell across his forehead, slightly too long, framing a face that could have been carved from stone. Sharp jaw, high cheekbones, a mouth set in a hard line. But it was his eyes that stopped her heart. Steel gray, cold as a winter storm, and fixed on her with an intensity that made her feel pinned to the bed like a butterfly on display. Those eyes held fury and something else she couldn't name, something that made her pull Spike and her wolf whimper. The man stepped into the room, and the scent of pine and dominance rolled over her in a wave that was almost physical. She couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Her wolf was clawing at the inside of her chest, trying to reach something, and for the first time in 3 years, Arya felt the bond that connected human to wolf strain against its broken tethers. "You're awake." His voice was deep, rough, and entirely without warmth. "Good. We need to talk." He crossed the room in 3 long strides and stopped at the foot of her bed, arms crossed over his broad chest. He wore black from head to toe, black shirt that strained across his shoulders, black pants, black boots. Everything about him screamed danger and authority. Arya found her voice, though it came out smaller than she'd like. "Where am I?" "The Royal Palace." He said it like he was delivering a sentence. "North Wing, 3rd floor. Under guard." The Royal. Arya's mind went blank. The Royal Palace? That was 300 miles from Silvercrest territory. How long had she been unconscious? "The pup," she said quickly, trying to sit up straighter. "The little boy I found, is he okay? Is he here?" Something flickered in those steel eyes. "Prince Nikolai is fine. No thanks to whoever took him in the first place." Prince. The word hit her like a slap. The child she'd pulled from the debris, the terrified little boy who'd clung to her in the storm, he was the prince? "I didn't," Arya started, but the man cut her off with a raised hand. "Don't." His voice dropped to a growl that raised every hair on her body. "Don't insult my intelligence by claiming ignorance. My son was kidnapped 3 days ago from a secured convoy. He was found in your arms, miles from where he was taken, during a storm that conveniently covered most tracks. He leaned forward, bracing his hands on the footboard of the bed, and Arya pressed back against the pillows. So I'll ask you once, and you'll think very carefully before you answer. Who are you working for? Her mind reeled. Kidnapped? 3 days? But she'd just found him last night by the river, trapped under the tree. Unless. How long have I been asleep? She asked. His jaw tightened. 2 days. The healers kept you sedated while they worked. Now answer my question. I don't know what you're talking about. The words tumbled out in a rush. I'm nobody. I work in the kitchens at Silvercrest. I was outside during the storm because I didn't want to be around the pack, and I heard screaming. A child screaming. So I followed the sound to the river, and he was trapped under a fallen tree, and I got him out. She was talking too fast, she knew, but she couldn't stop. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know he'd been kidnapped. I just knew he needed help. A kitchen Omega, the man said slowly, and there was something dangerous in his tone. With no wolf, no pack status, no resources, somehow managed to track down my son when my entire royal guard couldn't? I didn't track anyone. I heard him screaming. Arya's voice cracked. I pulled him out of the debris, and a tree fell on us, and I passed out. That's all I remember. I swear on the moon herself, I'm telling you the truth. He stared at her. Really stared, like he was trying to see through her skull into her thoughts. Arya forced herself to hold his gaze even though every instinct screamed at her to submit, to look away from the concentrated dominance rolling off him in waves. Then something shifted in the air between them. It happened so fast Arya almost missed it. One moment, she was looking into cold steel eyes, and the next, connection. A golden thread snapping into place, sudden and shocking, linking her chest to his with a force that stole her breath. Mate. Her wolf surged up with a strength that shouldn't have been possible, howling with recognition and need. The bond that had been broken for 3 years suddenly roared to life, and Arya felt everything, the mate bond pulsing between them like a living thing, warm and right and absolutely terrifying. The man, the alpha, the king, because that's who he had to be if the pup was a prince, staggered back a step. His face went white, then red, his hands clenching into fists at his sides. No, he said, and the word was barely human. No. Not possible. Arya couldn't speak. Her wolf was screaming at her to go to him, to close the distance between them, to claim what was theirs. But her human side knew what that look on his face meant. Rejection. Again. You're not my mate. The king's voice was flat, dead, even as the bond between them pulsed and burned. My mate is dead. She died giving birth to my son 5 years ago. I didn't, Arya started, but her voice broke. I didn't do this. I didn't ask for this. Get out. He turned away from her, his shoulders rigid with tension. When you're strong enough to travel, you'll be escorted back to Silvercrest Anne. The door opened again, and another man entered, older, with gray at his temples and the bearing of a warrior. He took one look at the king's face and went still. Darius, he said carefully. We have a problem. Not now, Marcus. Yes, now. The older man, Marcus, apparently, glanced at Arya, and she saw calculation in his eyes. It's about her. The king, Darius, turned slowly. Explain. Marcus pulled a folder from under his arm and opened it. We ran a scent analysis from the 3 previous kidnapping attempts over the past month. Different locations, different methods, but all targeting the prince. He paused, and Arya's stomach dropped. Her scent was found at all 3 sites. The room went deathly quiet. That's impossible, Arya whispered. I've never left Silvercrest territory in 3 years. Not once. I don't even know where those sites would be. Blackwood Forest, Marcus read from his notes. 2 weeks ago. The prince's school route was ambushed. Scent markers found on the trees matched yours exactly. I've never been to Blackwood Forest. Ironmere Valley. 10 days ago. Someone tampered with the prince's transport vehicle. Your scent on the door handle. I don't even know where that is. And Silver Lake. Marcus's voice was harder now. 3 days ago. Where the prince was actually taken. Your scent was everywhere. On the trees, the ground, even on the blanket he was wrapped in. Arya's mind was spinning. None of this made sense. She'd been at Silvercrest the entire time, working double shifts in the kitchen because the head cook had been sick. There were witnesses. There had to be witnesses. Someone's framing me, she said desperately, looking between the two men. Someone who can mimic sense or I don't know how this works, but I swear to you, I've never been to any of those places. Darius crossed his arms, his face like carved ice. Convenient. It's the truth. The truth, he said softly, dangerously, is that all evidence points to you being part of the conspiracy to kidnap my son. The truth is that you somehow managed to be in exactly the right place at exactly the right time to rescue him. The truth is, his voice dropped to a growl, that I felt the mate bond snap into place, which is impossible because I already had a mate, and the moon doesn't make mistakes like giving me another one. Maybe she does. The words burst out before Arya could stop them. Maybe she makes mistakes all the time. My first mate rejected me 3 years ago, and my wolf died, and I've been barely surviving ever since. So if you think I wanted this, if you think I planned any of this, you're wrong. Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. I saved your son because he was a terrified child who needed help. That's all. I don't want your bond, I don't want your suspicion, and I sure as hell don't want to be here. Silence fell like a hammer. Marcus cleared his throat. Darius, perhaps we should. Get her out of my sight. Darius's voice was empty. Put her in the guest quarters under guard until we can verify her story. I want every pack member at Silvercrest questioned. I want timelines, alibis, everything. He finally looked at her again, and those steel eyes were colder than death. If you're innocent, you'll be released. If you're guilty. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. And the bond? Marcus asked quietly. There is no bond. Darius headed for the door. Whatever the moon thinks she's doing, I reject it. I reject her. My mate is dead, and she will always be my only mate. The words hit Arya like physical blows. Her wolf howled in pain, and she felt the mate bond, that golden thread that had been whole for just a few minutes, start to fray and crack. This was happening again. She was being rejected again. But this time, she was too tired to cry about it. Fine, she said quietly. Reject me. I don't care. But I'm telling you the truth about your son. I found him by accident, and I saved him because it was the right thing to do. That's all. Darius paused at the door, his hand on the frame. For a moment, just a moment, she thought she saw something flicker in his expression. Doubt, maybe. Or regret. Then it was gone, and he was gone, the door closing behind him with a soft click that felt final. Arya sat in the silk sheets of the enormous bed and finally let herself feel the weight of everything. She was in the royal palace, accused of kidnapping a prince she'd risked her life to save. Her wolf had woken up just in time to find a mate who didn't want her. And somehow, her scent had been found at crime scenes she'd never visited. Someone had set her up. Someone had used her, framed her, and now she was trapped in a palace with a king who looked at her like she was poison. Marcus was still in the room, watching her with an expression she couldn't read. For what it's worth, he said quietly, the prince has been asking for you. He won't stop crying for the nice lady who saved him. That doesn't sound like the behavior of a child with his kidnapper. Small comfort, but Arya took it anyway. What happens now? Now? We investigate. Marcus moved toward the door. Guards will bring you food and clean clothes. Don't try to leave. The palace is warded against unauthorized wolves, and in your weakened state, you wouldn't make it past the first floor. He paused. And Miss Arya? If you truly are innocent, the truth will come out. King Darius is many things, but unjust isn't one of them. Then she was alone. Arya lay back against the pillows and stared at the painted ceiling. Wolves running beneath a full moon, free and wild and together. She'd never felt more alone in her life. Deep in her chest, her wolf whimpered and curled up small. The mate bond was still there, thin and fragile and rejected, but not quite broken. Not yet. Like it was waiting for something. Arya closed her eyes and tried not to think about steel-gray eyes and a voice that had said I reject her like it was easy. She tried not to think about how, for just a moment when the bond snapped into place, she'd felt whole again. And she tried very hard not to think about what it meant that someone had gone to enormous trouble to make it look like she was guilty of a crime she'd never commit. Outside her window, storm clouds were gathering again. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 3. The guest quarters were a gilded cage. Beautiful, certainly, all polished wood and soft carpets and windows that overlooked the palace gardens. But the guards outside her door and the wards humming through the walls made it clear what this was. Prison. Just a prettier one than most. Arya had been here for 4 days now, and the routine never varied. Meals delivered on silver trays. Clean clothes appearing in the wardrobe as if by magic. Healers checking her wounds morning and evening, their hands gentle but their faces carefully blank. No one spoke to her beyond what was necessary. No one met her eyes. She was a problem they were trying to solve before disposing of. She stood at the window now, watching the sun set over gardens she wasn't allowed to walk in. Her back had healed completely, whatever healers the royal family employed were worth every coin. The bandages were gone, her skin unmarked except for a few faint scars that would fade in time. But the deeper wounds were still raw. The mate bond pulsed in her chest like a second heartbeat, thin and fragile and wrong. Rejected but not broken, hovering in that awful limbo between hope and death. Every time she felt it pull toward wherever Darius was in the palace, her wolf whimpered and pushed closer to the surface, desperate for a connection that would never come. It reminded her too much of the first time. Don't think about it, she told herself. Don't go back there. But alone in the silence, the memories came anyway. 3 years ago, Silvercrest territory. Arya had been 21 and stupid with hope. The mate bond had snapped into place during the summer festival, right in the middle of the bonfire celebration. She'd looked across the flames and locked eyes with Marcus Steele, third son of the pack's head warrior, handsome and strong and utterly confident. Her mate. She'd run to him like a fool, her wolf singing with joy, her heart so full she thought it might burst. He'd caught her, spun her around, and for one perfect moment, everything had been right. Then he'd set her down and said, "We need to talk." Privately. She should have known then. Should have heard the coldness under his words. But she'd been too happy, too relieved that the moon goddess had given her someone, that she'd followed him away from the celebration into the trees. "I can't accept this bond," he'd said without preamble. "My family has already arranged a match with Helena from the Nightshade Pack. It's political, it's strategic, and it's happening in 2 months." Arya had stared at him. But I'm your mate." The moon goddess chose. The moon goddess doesn't understand pack politics. His face had been hard. "You're nobody, Arya. The daughter of a mid-level beta with no particular skills or status. Helena brings alliances, territory agreements, and a substantial dowry. You bring nothing." The words had cut deeper than claws. "I bring the mate bond," she'd whispered. "I bring us. There is no us." He'd stepped back, putting distance between them. "I reject you, Arya Thorne. I reject this bond, and I reject any claim you think you have on me." The pain had dropped her to her knees. Physical, agonizing, like her chest was caving in. Her wolf had howled in her mind, clawing and desperate, trying to hold on to the bond that was crumbling to dust. "Please," she'd gasped. "Please don't. It's already done." Marcus had turned to leave, then paused. "And Arya? If you make trouble about this, if you try to interfere with my mating ceremony, I'll make sure everyone knows how desperate you are." How pathetic. She'd stayed there on the forest floor long after he left, feeling her wolf slowly go silent. First a whimper, then a whisper, then nothing at all. Just emptiness where the most fundamental part of herself used to be. But Marcus hadn't been content with just rejection. 2 weeks later, when Arya had been unable to shift for the pack run, unable to even feel her wolf anymore, whispers had started. Broken Omega. Defective. Cursed. Helena had arrived for the engagement celebration, beautiful and perfect and everything Arya wasn't, and Marcus had made a show of his devotion to her. And when Arya had finally worked up the courage to attend the celebration, hoping to prove she was fine, that she'd moved on, Marcus had cornered her in a dark hallway. "I told you not to make trouble," he'd hissed. "I'm not making trouble. I'm just. You're embarrassing me. The broken Omega who couldn't keep her mate. Everyone's talking about how pathetic you are, and it reflects on me." His hand had shot out, gripping her throat, slamming her against the wall. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave this celebration. You're going to take whatever shit job the pack will give you, and you're going to stay the fuck away from me and Helena. Understand?" She nodded, gasping for air. But he hadn't let go. He'd called his friends, 3 other warriors who'd had too much to drink and too little conscience. They'd dragged her outside, away from the celebration, and taught her what happened to Omegas who didn't know their place. Arya had woken up in the healer's den 2 days later with 3 broken ribs, a shattered collarbone, and absolutely no one willing to tell the Alpha what had really happened. Marcus was too well connected, too valuable. And she was just a broken Omega who'd probably brought it on herself. She'd taken the kitchen job the next week and hadn't spoken to Marcus Steele since. A knock on the door yanked Arya back to the present. She turned as one of the guards opened it, letting in a small figure that darted past him before anyone could stop it. Prince Nikolai. The little boy ran straight to her, wrapping his arms around her waist and burying his face in her stomach. "You're still here. Papa said you had to leave, but you're still here." Arya's heart clenched. She dropped to her knees automatically, bringing herself to eye level with the pup. "Hey, sweetheart. You're not supposed to be in here." "I don't care." His dark eyes, so like his father's, were fierce. "You saved me. You're my angel. Papa can't make you leave." "Nikolai." The voice from the doorway was sharp and commanding. "Step away from her. Now." Darius filled the doorway, and the air in the room immediately felt thinner. He was dressed for training, simple clothes that somehow made him look more dangerous instead of less. His steel-gray eyes were fixed on his son, then flicked to Arya with an expression that made her chest tight. "But Papa." "Now, Nikolai." There was no room for argument in that tone. The little prince's lip trembled, but he obeyed, dragging his feet as he walked back to his father. Darius put a hand on his shoulder, steering him toward the door, but Nikolai twisted around at the last moment. "I'll come back," he called to Arya. "I promise." Then they were gone, and Arya was alone again with guards who pretended she didn't exist. She sank into the chair by the window and pressed her hands to her face. This was impossible. All of it. She was trapped in a palace accused of crimes she didn't commit, rejected by a mate she'd never asked for, and somehow breaking the heart of a 5-year-old prince who thought she was an angel. She needed to leave. Before this got worse. Before she got so tangled up in royal politics that she'd never get free. But even thinking about leaving made her wolf snarl and push at her skin, desperate and frantic. "Mate is here," her wolf whispered, the first coherent thought it had managed since waking. "Cannot leave mate. He's not our mate," Arya said out loud to the empty room. "He rejected us. Just like Marcus did." Different, her wolf insisted. This one fights the bond. Feels it too. Strong. Alpha. Ours. He doesn't want to be ours. Her wolf had no answer for that. Just a deep, aching sadness that mirrored her own. 2 more days passed in the same routine. Meals, healers, silence. But on the 7th day, something changed. Marcus, not her former mate, but the king's beta Marcus, appeared at her door in the afternoon with an expression she couldn't read. "The king wants to see you," he said. In his private study. Now. Arya's stomach dropped. "Why?" "That's not my place to say. Come with me." She followed him through hallways she'd only glimpsed from her window, past guards who straightened at their approach, through sections of the palace that grew progressively more opulent. Finally, Marcus stopped at a heavy wooden door carved with wolves and knocked twice. "Enter." Darius's voice, muffled but unmistakable. Marcus opened the door and gestured for Arya to go in, but he didn't follow. The door closed behind her with a soft click, and she was alone with the Alpha King in a room that smelled overwhelmingly of pine and leather and him. The study was lined with bookshelves, a massive desk dominating one end and a fireplace crackling at the other. Darius stood with his back to her, staring into the flames, his shoulders tight with tension. "You've been here a week," he said without turning around. "And in that time, my investigators have found complications." Arya's heart hammered. "What kind of complications?" "The kind that suggest you might actually be telling the truth." He finally turned, and his face was carved from stone. "Your alibi checks out for all 3 kidnapping attempts. Multiple pack members confirm you were at Silvercrest, working in the kitchens. One of the attempts happened during a time when you were literally in front of 30 witnesses, preparing for a feast." Relief crashed through her so hard she swayed. "Then you know I didn't." "I know you weren't physically present at those sites," Darius corrected. "But your scent was. Which means someone with access to scent magic, specifically, essence replication magic, has been framing you." His jaw tightened. "Dark magic. Illegal in all territories, and punishable by death." "Why?" The question burst out of her. "Why would anyone frame me? I'm nobody. I have no power, no connections, no." "That's what we're trying to figure out." He moved closer, and Arya had to fight the urge to step back. Not from fear, from the overwhelming pull of the mate bond. Someone went to considerable effort and expense to use you as their scapegoat. Someone who had access to you at Silvercrest to collect your scent. Someone who knew enough about you to know you were perfect for framing, isolated, powerless, already broken. The last word stung, but Arya pushed past it. "So I'm free to go?" "No." His voice was flat. "You're a loose end in an active investigation. Until we find who's behind this, you're staying here where I can protect you." "Protect me?" She laughed, and it came out bitter. "You think I'm safer in a palace where half the staff probably wants me dead for being accused of kidnapping their prince? I think you're safer here than anywhere else, because here, you're under my protection. Like it or not." "I don't like it." Arya crossed her arms. "I don't like being a prisoner. I don't like being accused of things I didn't do. And I really don't like being stuck in a palace with a mate who looks at me like I'm poison but won't let me leave." Something flashed in his eyes. Don't what?" "Tell the truth. You felt it too, Darius. The bond. Don't pretend you didn't." "What I felt," he said, his voice dropping to a growl, "was a cruel joke from the moon goddess. My mate died 5 years ago. She died bringing my son into this world, and I held her while she bled out because the healers couldn't stop it. I made vows to her. I loved her. And now," he stepped closer, and Arya's back hit the bookshelf behind her. "Now the moon expects me to forget her? To replace her with some broken Omega who appeared out of nowhere? I didn't ask for this." Arya's voice cracked. "You think I wanted another mate bond after what happened to me?" You think I want to feel this pull towards someone who keeps rejecting me? Then leave. His face was inches from hers now, and she could feel his breath on her skin. If it's so awful, just walk away. I won't stop you. I tried. The admission was barely a whisper. 2 days ago, I tried to leave. I made it to the door before my wolf. Her voice broke. She screamed. She clawed at me from the inside, trying to stop me. I collapsed before I made it 5 steps. So don't tell me to just leave, because apparently, my wolf would rather kill us both than walk away from a mate who doesn't want us. Silence fell between them, heavy and charged. Darius was so close she could see flecks of darker gray in his eyes, could count the days of stubble on his jaw. The mate bond pulsed between them, and for one heartbeat, too, she thought he might close the distance. His hand came up, fingers ghosting along her jaw. This is impossible, he murmured. I know. I can't want you. I know that too. But God's help me, I do. His thumb brushed her lower lip, and Arya's breath caught. My wolf is going insane. Every instinct I have is screaming at me to claim you, to protect you, to... He cut himself off, jaw clenching. This isn't fair to either of us. Life isn't fair. Arya's voice was steadier than she felt. Trust me, I learned that lesson a long time ago. For a moment, one perfect, terrible moment, she thought he would kiss her. She could see it in his eyes, the war between want and duty, between grief and need. His hand slid into her hair, tilting her face up, and she let her eyes flutter closed. Then he jerked back like she'd burned him. This can't happen. His voice was rough. I won't betray her memory. I won't. He turned away, putting the desk between them like a barrier. You'll stay in the guest quarters until we solve this. Then you'll be free to go wherever you want. Away from here. Away from me. Arya's wolf howled in protest, but she pushed it down. Fine. Is that all? Yes. Marcus will escort you back. The door burst open, and a guard appeared, breathing hard. Your Majesty. The new warriors from the Southern Territories have arrived for evaluation. Including the contingent from Silvercrest. Darius nodded dismissively. Have them report to the training grounds. I'll. Sire. The guard's eyes flicked to Arya, then away. One of them is asking about the Omega. Says he knows her. Marcus Steele, third son of Silvercrest's head warrior. The world tilted. Arya grabbed the bookshelf for support, her vision tunneling. No. Not him. Not here. Marcus Steele? Darius's voice sharpened. He's been here before, hasn't he? Beta Marcus mentioned clearing a warrior by that name weeks ago. Yes, sire. He's been training with the elite guard for. The guard checked his notes. 3 weeks now. Arrived before the kidnapping. 3 weeks. Marcus had been at the palace for 3 weeks. Long enough to have access to her scent from Silvercrest. Long enough to plant evidence. Long enough to frame her. Arya looked up at Darius and saw her own realization reflected in his face. Get him, the king said softly, dangerously. Get him now and bring him to the interrogation rooms. And find out everything about where he's been and who he's talked to since he arrived. The guard saluted and disappeared. Darius moved around the desk toward her. Did you know he was here? No. The word came out strangled. I swear, I didn't know. I haven't seen him since, she couldn't finish. Since he'd rejected her. Since his friends had beaten her half to death. Since her wolf had died. Since what? Darius's voice was quieter now, but no less intense. Since he rejected our mate bond 3 years ago. The truth was easier than lying. He's the one who broke me. He's the reason my wolf went silent. Something shifted in Darius's expression. And now he's here, at my palace, during an investigation where your scent keeps appearing at crime scenes. That's too convenient to be coincidence. No. Darius's hand found her shoulder, steadying her. It's not. And if he's responsible for framing you, for putting my son in danger. His voice dropped to a growl that raised every hair on her body. He'll wish he'd never been born. The mate bond flared between them, and this time, Arya didn't try to push it away. Because underneath all the rejection and grief and impossibility, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Protected. Come with me, Darius said. You're going to face him. And this time, you're not alone. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 4. The interrogation room was cold stone and iron chains, built in an age when kings dealt with traitors swiftly and without mercy. Arya stood beside Darius, her hands trembling despite her best efforts to stay calm. Through the one-way glass, she could see Marcus Steele sitting at a metal table, looking entirely too comfortable for someone who might be guilty of treason. He looked exactly as she remembered. Handsome in a brutal way, with dark hair and the kind of build that came from years of warrior training. But where she'd once seen strength, she now saw cruelty in the set of his jaw, the cold calculation in his eyes. You don't have to be here for this, Darius said quietly. His hand rested on the small of her back, a gesture that would have been possessive if it didn't feel so much like support. Yes, I do. Arya straightened her shoulders. I need to see his face when he lies. Darius studied her for a moment, then nodded. Beta Marcus will conduct the interrogation. I'll be watching for tells. You, his gray eyes met hers. You just breathe. And if it becomes too much, you leave. Understood? It wasn't really a question, but Arya nodded anyway. Beta Marcus entered the interrogation room, and Arya watched through the glass as her former mate's expression shifted to something approximating respect. They'd served together, she realized. These were warriors who knew each other, trusted each other. Which made what came next so much worse. Marcus Steele. Beta Marcus took the seat across from him. Thanks for coming in. Just a few routine questions about the investigation. Of course. Marcus's voice was smooth. Happy to help however I can. Terrible business about the prince. Indeed. You arrived at the palace 3 weeks ago, correct? Part of the Silvercrest contingent training with the elite guard? That's right. Great honor to be selected. And during your time here, did you have any contact with Arya Thorne? Something flickered across Marcus's face. Arya? The kitchen Omega from my pack? No, why would I? Because your scent was found in the West Wing hallway outside her quarters 2 days ago. The lie was smooth, delivered without inflection. But Arya saw Marcus's shoulders tense almost imperceptibly. Must be a mistake, Marcus said. I've never been to the guest quarters. My barracks are in the South Wing. Interesting. Beta Marcus leaned back. Because the guest quarters are also where we found traces of essence replication magic. Very dark, very illegal magic. The kind used to frame someone for crimes they didn't commit. I don't know anything about that. Don't you? Beta Marcus slid a folder across the table. Because we also found this in your belongings during a routine inspection. Care to explain why you have a vial of Arya Thorne scent essence? Arya's breath caught. Through the glass, she watched Marcus's face go carefully blank. I can explain that. Please do. It's from years ago. Marcus's voice was steady, but his hands had curled into fists on the table. Before I mated with Helena. Arya and I were involved. I kept it as a memento. A memento. Beta Marcus's tone was flat with disbelief. You kept your ex-girlfriend's scent essence for 3 years? It's not that unusual. It's extremely unusual. Especially when that same scent essence matches the magical residue found at 3 separate kidnapping sites. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Marcus smiled, and it was the coldest thing Arya had ever seen. You're going to need more than circumstantial evidence to accuse a warrior of the King's Guard of treason, Beta. Oh, we have more. Beta Marcus pulled out another document. We have testimony from the witch we arrested last night. Very cooperative once she realized the alternative was execution. She gave us everything, including the name of the warrior who paid her to harvest scent essence and create the magical storms. Marcus's face remained impassive, but Arya saw it, the tiny tick in his jaw, the way his fingers pressed harder against the table. I want to speak to my pack alpha, Marcus said. I'm invoking my rights under pack law. You're in the royal palace, under the king's law. You have no rights except what he grants you. Beta Marcus stood. You'll remain here while we continue our investigation. And Marcus? If I were you, I'd start thinking very carefully about cooperation. Because if you're involved in a plot against the prince, there's nowhere in this world you can hide. Beta Marcus left the interrogation room and joined them in the observation area. His face was grim. He's involved, he said without preamble. But he's not working alone. Someone with more power, more resources, is backing him. Lady Serena, Darius said quietly. His jaw was tight with barely contained rage. It has to be. She's been pushing for her son to be recognized as heir since my mate died. This would be her move: eliminate Nikolai, frame an outsider, create chaos she can exploit. Your cousin wouldn't, Beta Marcus started, but Darius cut him off with a sharp gesture. My cousin would absolutely do this. She's been circling like a vulture for 5 years, waiting for an opportunity. He turned to Arya. Did Marcus ever mention her? Any connection between Silvercrest and Lady Serena? Arya tried to think past the ringing in her ears. I don't know. I was just kitchen staff. I didn't hear about political dealings. But you knew Marcus, Darius pressed. You were his mate. Did he ever talk about ambitions beyond Silvercrest? Connections to other packs, other territories? We weren't together long enough for, Arya's voice broke. He rejected me within hours of the bond forming. And after that, I avoided him. I don't know what he was involved in. Darius's hand found hers, squeezing gently. Through their fragile bond, she felt his wolf. Angry and protective and utterly focused on her. This isn't your fault, he said firmly. Marcus used you. That's on him, not you. Before Arya could respond, an aide appeared in the doorway, breathless. Your Majesty. Lady Serena has arrived for the formal dinner. She's asking about the investigation. Darius's expression went arctic. Perfect timing. Tell her I'll see her at dinner, as planned. He looked at Arya. You're coming with me. To dinner? I can't, I'm not. You're under my protection, which means you attend royal functions at my side. His tone left no room for argument. Besides, I want Serena to see you. I want her to know her plan failed. 2 hours later, Arya stood in front of a mirror in her guest quarters, barely recognizing herself. The palace staff had descended like a whirlwind, bringing dresses and jewelry and cosmetics. The gown they'd chosen was deep emerald green, silk that flowed like water and made her pale skin seem to glow. Her dark hair had been pinned up with what felt like 1,000 pins, leaving her neck bare. She looked like someone who belonged at a royal dinner. She looked like someone who wasn't broken. You look beautiful, said the young woman who'd done her hair, one of the few palace staff who'd been kind to her. The king won't be able to take his eyes off you. We're not, Arya didn't know how to finish that sentence. The woman smiled knowingly. Whatever you say, miss. A knock at the door announced Darius's arrival. He'd changed into formal attire, all black as usual, but tailored perfectly to his powerful frame. When his eyes met hers, something flared in their steel depths that made her breath catch. You look, he paused, seeming to struggle for words. Beautiful doesn't cover it. Heat crept up Arya's neck. Thank you. You look intimidating. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Good. That's the intention. He offered his arm. Ready to face the wolves? Not even a little bit. Honest. I like that. His voice dropped lower. Stay close to me. Don't eat or drink anything unless I've tasted it first. And if anyone, makes you uncomfortable, you tell me immediately. You think someone will try something at dinner? I think cornering a desperate enemy makes them dangerous. And Serena is nothing if not desperate. The formal dining hall was enormous, lit by 3 massive chandeliers and lined with portraits of past kings. A long table dominated the center, already crowded with nobles and high-ranking wolves. Conversation died as Darius entered with Arya on his arm. Every eye in the room fixed on her. Arya wanted to sink through the floor. She could feel their judgment, their confusion, their barely concealed hostility. Who was this nobody Omega, appearing at the king's side like she belonged there? Darius. A woman's voice, smooth as honey and twice as false. How wonderful to see you. Lady Serena was beautiful in the way that predators were beautiful. All sharp edges and calculated grace. She wore red silk that probably cost more than Arya had made in her entire life, and her smile didn't reach her cold blue eyes. Serena. Darius's voice was polite but distant. Allow me to introduce Arya Thorne. She's a guest of the palace. How unexpected. Serena's gaze raked over Arya like she was evaluating livestock. I wasn't aware we were entertaining kitchen staff at formal dinners. The insult was delivered with a smile, but it landed like a slap. Arya felt Darius tense beside her. Miss Thorne is the one who saved Prince Nikolai's life, he said quietly. She risked everything to protect my son. That earns her a place at any table I sit at. Serena's smile tightened. Of course. How noble of her. Though I must admit, I find it curious how she happened to be in exactly the right place at exactly the right time. Almost too convenient, wouldn't you say? What I find curious, Darius replied, his voice dropping to something dangerous, is how interested you are in the circumstances of my son's rescue. One might think you had a personal stake in the outcome. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Serena's smile never wavered, but something flickered in her eyes. Fear? Calculation? I'm merely concerned for Nikolai's safety, as any family member would be. Of course you are. Darius guided Arya toward their seats. Shall we eat? Dinner was a carefully orchestrated torture. Arya sat at Darius's right hand, hyper-aware of every whisper, every sideways glance. The food was incredible, courses she couldn't name, each more elaborate than the last, but it all tasted like ash in her mouth. And then Marcus appeared. He walked into the dining hall in his warrior dress uniform, moving with the confidence of someone who believed he was untouchable. His eyes found Arya immediately, and his smile was poison. Your Majesty. He bowed to Darius. I was told my presence was requested at dinner. Not by me, Darius said coldly. Who authorized your release from interrogation? I did. Serena's voice was bright with false innocence. The poor man has been so helpful to the guard. I thought it cruel to keep him locked away during such a lovely dinner. Surely if he were truly guilty, you'd have found evidence by now. The challenge was clear. Serena was protecting Marcus, which meant Darius had been right, they were working together. Marcus's eyes never left Arya. Hello, little Omega. Didn't expect to see you here. Quite the upgrade from the kitchen. Sit down, Steele, Beta Marcus growled from across the table. Or leave. I'm just making conversation. Marcus slid into a seat near Serena, still watching Arya. After all, Arya and I have history. Don't we, sweetheart? Arya's hands clenched in her lap. Through the bond, she felt Darius's wolf surge with protective rage. The only history you have, Darius said softly, is as a coward who rejected his mate and left her broken. I suggest you choose your next words very carefully. Marcus's smile widened. Broken. Yes, that's a good word for her. Tell me, Arya, have you managed to shift yet? Or are you still pretending to be a real wolf? The words hit exactly where he'd aimed them, the deepest wound, the worst shame. Arya felt tears burn her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of everyone. That's enough. Darius started to rise, but Arya put a hand on his arm. It's fine, she said quietly. He's not worth it. Listen to her, Your Majesty, Marcus said. She knows her place. Always has, once you beat it into her hard enough. The entire table went silent. Darius moved so fast Arya barely saw it. One moment he was seated, the next he had Marcus by the throat, lifted clear off the ground, slammed against the nearest wall. China rattled on the table. Someone screamed. You put your hands on her? Darius's voice was barely human, more growl than words. You hurt her? She wouldn't accept the rejection, Marcus choked out. Had to teach her. You taught her nothing but that some wolves aren't worth the skin they're in. Darius's claws were out now, pressed against Marcus's throat. Give me one reason not to end you right here. Darius, please. Serena's voice was sharp. This is hardly appropriate dinner conversation. Whatever grievances you have with Marcus can be handled through proper channels. Proper channels? Darius didn't look away from Marcus. Like the proper channels you used to hire a dark witch? To frame an innocent woman? To kidnap my son? Serena's face went pale. I don't know what you're. The witch talked, Serena. She gave us everything. Names, dates, payments. Including the very generous sum you paid to have Arya's essence harvested and used to cover your tracks. He finally released Marcus, letting him collapse to the floor gasping. You wanted Nikolai dead so your son could be heir. You used Marcus and his personal vendetta against Arya to set up the perfect scapegoat. That's absurd, Serena backed away, but guards were already moving to block the exits. I would never hurt Nikolai. He's family. Family you tried to murder. Darius's voice was ice. Guards. Take them both into custody. Charge them with treason, conspiracy, attempted murder of the Crown Prince, and use of dark magic. They'll stand trial tomorrow. You can't do this. Serena shrieked as guards grabbed her arms. I'm your family. You're a traitor. Darius turned his back on her. And you'll be treated as one. As the guards dragged Marcus and Serena from the dining hall, Arya felt something crack open in her chest. Relief? Vindication? She wasn't sure. She only knew that suddenly, she couldn't breathe. Excuse me, she whispered, standing on shaking legs. I need air. She made it 3 steps before the world tilted. Pain exploded across her shoulder, sharp and burning and wrong. She looked down and saw the knife hilt protruding from her flesh, right below her collarbone. Blood bloomed across the green silk. Someone screamed. Might have been her. Her legs gave out, but before she hit the ground, she saw him, a server, his face twisted with fanatic devotion as he reached for another blade. One of Serena's followers, making a last desperate play. But he wasn't aiming for Arya anymore. He was aiming for Prince Nikolai, who'd been brought to dinner as a treat and now stood frozen in terror 5 feet away. No. The word echoed through Arya's mind with a force that came from somewhere deep and primal. Her wolf, silent for 3 years, suddenly roared to life with a power that made her vision white out. Not the pup. Not him. Never him. She threw herself forward, ignoring the knife in her shoulder, ignoring the pain, ignoring everything except the need to protect. She hit the assassin at full force, driving him away from Nikolai, taking the second blade meant for the prince straight through her stomach. This pain was different. Cold. Spreading like ice through her veins. Poison. She heard shouting, felt hands on her, felt Darius's presence like fire against her skin. But it was all distant, muffled, like she was underwater. Arya. Stay with me. Healers. Now. Darius's voice cracked with something that might have been fear. Nikolai, she managed. Is he? He's safe. You saved him. You stupid, brave, incredible woman, you saved him. Good. The word came out slurred. That's good. Her wolf was howling now, clawing at her from the inside, trying to force a shift that her body hadn't managed in 3 years. But something was different this time. The barriers that had held her wolf trapped were crumbling, burning away in the face of her desperate need to survive. Shift, her wolf demanded. Shift or die. Choose. I can't, Arya whispered. I'm broken. I can't. You were never broken. Darius's face was above hers now, his hands on either side of her face. Do you hear me? You were wounded, but you were never broken. And I won't lose you. Not when I just found you. Something in his words, in his voice, in the mate bonds suddenly blazing between them like the sun, it was enough. Arya felt her bones start to shift. The pain was indescribable. 3 years of locked joints and atrophied connections all trying to work at once. She screamed, or tried to, but the sound came out as a howl, her wolf's howl, clear and strong and absolutely furious. Light burst from her skin. Not normal light, this was silver, bright as the full moon, washing over everyone in the dining hall. Arya felt her body reshaping, felt fur sprout along her skin, felt the poison trying to fight the transformation and losing. Because this wasn't a normal shift. This was a moon-blessed Omega awakening, and the goddess herself had her hand on Arya's shoulder. When the light faded, Arya stood on 4 legs for the first time in 3 years. Her wolf was smaller than most, silvery white with dark eyes, but she practically glowed with power. The knife and poison had been pushed from her body during the shift, the wounds already closing. Around her, every wolf in the room had dropped to their knees, heads bowed in instinctive submission to something they recognized but couldn't name. Only Darius remained standing. His eyes were wide with wonder and something that looked almost like reverence. Moon-blessed, he breathed. You're moon-blessed. That's why they targeted you specifically, not just as a scapegoat, but to eliminate a potential threat. A moon-blessed Omega can challenge even the darkest magic. Arya tried to shift back, but her wolf resisted. She was drunk on freedom, on movement, on the power singing through veins that had been dormant too long. Not yet, her wolf said. Need to run. Need to hunt. Need to claim our mate. As if summoned by the thought, Darius shifted too. His wolf was massive, black as midnight with those same steel-gray eyes. He was easily twice her size, all corded muscle and lethal grace. He padded toward her slowly, giving her space to retreat if she wanted. But Arya didn't retreat. Instead, she moved forward, pressing her muzzle against his neck, breathing in his scent. The mate bond, fragile and rejected and barely alive, suddenly exploded into full bloom. Arya felt it like a tidal wave, Darius's emotions, his fear for her, his rage at those who'd hurt her, his desperate, soul-deep need to protect and claim and keep. And underneath it all, something he'd been hiding even from himself. Love. Not the comfortable affection he'd felt for his late mate. Not duty or respect or political alliance. This was the kind of love that consumed, that burned, that made him willing to tear down the entire world if it meant keeping her safe. Mate, his wolf said simply, definitively. Ours. Finally ours. Darius shifted back to human first and Arya followed suit moments later, suddenly aware that she was naked in a dining hall full of shocked nobles. Darius immediately wrapped his jacket around her, pulling her against his chest. You're staying, he said roughly against her hair. No more talk of leaving. No more rejection. The moon goddess put you in my path for a reason, and I'm done fighting it. Darius. My late mate was a good woman. I cared for her, respected her, honored her memory. But she wasn't you. His arms tightened. You're my true mate, Arya. The one the moon intended for me from the beginning. And I'm sorry, gods, I'm so sorry I tried to deny that. I'm sorry I made you feel unwanted when my wolf has been screaming for you since the moment I saw you. Arya pulled back just enough to see his face. What about your council? Your family? They'll never accept. Then they can challenge me for the throne. His voice was steel. Because I'm not giving you up. Not for politics, not for tradition, not for anything. He cupped her face in his hands. You threw yourself in front of a poisoned blade to save my son. You shifted for the first time in 3 years because your need to protect was stronger than your trauma. You're the strongest person I've ever met, and I will not let anyone, tell me you're not worthy to be my mate and my queen. Queen? Arya's voice came out strangled. I'm just. You're moon-blessed. You're incredibly brave. You're kind and selfless and perfect. He pressed his forehead to hers. And you're mine. If you'll have me. The bond between them pulsed with warmth and certainty. Arya felt her wolf's absolute contentment, felt her own heart opening to possibilities she'd thought were dead. The storm, she said suddenly, the pieces clicking together. The night I found Nikolai. That wasn't natural, was it? Serena's witch summoned it to cover the kidnapping. That's what the witch confessed, Darius confirmed. She created the storm to wash away evidence and provide cover. But, he paused, his expression going soft with wonder. The moon goddess is older and more powerful than any dark magic. She must have seen what they planned, must have known Nikolai would need saving. So she put you exactly where you needed to be. She gave me back my wolf, Arya whispered. Not fully, not then. But enough to make me hear Nikolai's scream. Enough to make me save him. She gave me back my mate. Darius's thumb brushed her cheek. And I'm not fool enough to reject her gift twice. He kissed her then, soft and careful and full of promise. The bond between them sang with joy, and somewhere in the distance, Arya thought she heard a wolf howl in triumph. When they broke apart, the dining hall was still full of kneeling nobles and wide-eyed witnesses. Darius addressed them without releasing Arya. Arya Thorne is my true mate, moon-blessed and chosen by the goddess herself. Anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me personally. His voice left no room for argument. Now someone get healers to check on her, clean up this mess, and throw that assassin in the deepest cell we have. As the hall burst into activity, Nikolai broke free from his guards and ran to them, throwing his arms around both Arya and his father. You saved me again, he said, his voice muffled against Arya's side. You're the best angel ever. Arya's heart, so long empty and aching, suddenly felt full enough to burst. She looked at Darius over Nikolai's head and saw her own wonder reflected in his eyes. This was what the moon goddess had planned all along. Not broken. Just waiting for the right moment to become whole. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 5. The full moon hung heavy and silver over the palace gardens, so bright it cast shadows sharp as blades. Arya stood at the window of the royal chambers she now shared with Darius, watching the preparations below. Tonight was the lunar ceremony, ancient, sacred, and absolutely crucial. Every noble family in the kingdom would be present to witness the formal acceptance of the new Luna Queen. Her. You're nervous. Darius's arms came around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. Even after 2 weeks of being bonded, his touch still sent shivers through her. Terrified, Arya admitted. What if they don't accept me? What if the council decides I'm not worthy? Then they'll have to go through me to remove you. His voice was matter-of-fact. And I promise you, love, that won't end well for them. Despite her fear, Arya smiled. The bond between them had grown stronger each day, settling into something warm and constant. She could feel his wolf now, could sense his emotions as clearly as her own. And what she felt from him was absolute certainty. He believed she was meant for this. Even if she didn't quite believe it herself yet. Marcus and Serena's trial is tomorrow, Darius continued, his arms tightening slightly. They'll be sentenced, and this will all be over. But something prickled at the back of Aria's neck. Her wolf, so newly awakened, stirred with unease. What if it's not over? She asked quietly. What if tonight? I have guards everywhere. The ceremony grounds are warded. Nothing is getting through that I don't want getting through. He turned her to face him, his gray eyes serious. But if you want to postpone, we can. Your comfort matters more than tradition. No. Arya squared her shoulders. I won't let them make me afraid. I won't let them win by hiding. Pride flashed across his face. That's my queen. The ceremony grounds were breathtaking. Hundreds of candles floated in the air, held aloft by magic, their flames dancing in the gentle breeze. White flowers, moon blooms, which only opened under the full moon, covered every surface, filling the air with their sweet scent. And at the center of it all stood an ancient stone circle, older than the kingdom itself, where Luna queens had been crowned for 1,000 years. Arya wore white silk that flowed like water, embroidered with silver thread in patterns of wolves and moons. Her dark hair was loose, woven with moon blooms and silver ribbons. She looked like something from a fairy tale, if fairy tales included terrified former kitchen workers trying not to trip on their ceremonial gowns. Darius walked beside her in formal black and silver, every inch the Alpha King. Behind them, young Nikolai carried a cushion bearing the Luna crown, delicate silver shaped like branches and leaves, with moonstones that caught the light. The assembled nobles watched in silence as they approached the stone circle. Arya recognized faces. Some openly hostile, some curious, some carefully neutral. But she held her head high and kept walking. Beta Marcus, not her former mate, but Darius's second, stood waiting in the circle, along with the high priestess, an ancient wolf with white hair and eyes that seemed to see too much. We gather under the full moon, the priestess began, her voice carrying across the silent grounds, to witness the bonding of our Alpha King to his chosen mate. To accept her as Luna, as queen, as mother to the pack. Mother to the pack. The words made Arya's throat tight. She'd gone from having no one, being nothing, to this, standing before hundreds of wolves who would look to her for guidance, for strength, for leadership. Do you, Arya Thorne, accept the responsibility of Luna Queen? Do you swear to protect this pack with your life, to guide them with wisdom, to stand beside your Alpha in all things? I do. Arya's voice was steadier than she felt. And do you, Alpha King Darius Thornwood, accept this woman as your true mate? Do you swear to honor her, to protect her, to... A scream shattered the ceremony. Arya spun toward the sound and felt her heart stop. At the edge of the gardens, a group of wolves in dark clothes had appeared, and at their center, held with a knife to his throat, was Prince Nikolai. The real Nikolai, not the illusion that had been standing behind them. Nobody move. The voice was familiar, twisted with rage. Marcus Steele stepped forward, holding the terrified prince. Or the air dies. Chaos erupted. Guards surged forward, but Serena appeared from the shadows, her hands glowing with dark magic. The witch must have taught her before being arrested. I said don't move. Serena's magic lashed out, creating a barrier that sent the guards flying backward. We tried to do this quietly. We tried to frame the little Omega and remove the obstacles in our path. But you just wouldn't cooperate, dear cousin. Darius had gone absolutely still, but Arya could feel the rage pouring through their bond. Let my son go, Serena. This is between us. Oh, but it's not. It stopped being between us the moment you chose her. Serena's face twisted with hatred as she looked at Arya. A broken Omega? A nobody with no family, no power, no worth? You should have chosen my son as heir. You should have given me what I deserved after everything I've done for this kingdom. You've done nothing but scheme and murder, Darius growled. And you'll die for it. But first, let Nikolai go. I don't think so. Marcus's blade pressed closer to Nikolai's throat, and the little prince whimpered. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to reject your mate bond with the Omega. Publicly. Then you're going to name Serena's son as heir. And then we'll consider letting the prince live. Aria's wolf surged forward with fury. Through their bond, she felt Darius's desperation. He would do it. He would reject her, would give up everything, if it meant saving his son. But her moon-blessed power had other ideas. No, Aria said quietly, and silver light began to glow beneath her skin. You're not taking him. She moved before anyone could stop her, before she'd even fully planned what she was doing. Her wolf guided her, instinct older than thought taking over. She ran toward Nikolai, and as Marcus raised his blade to strike, she threw up her hands. Silver light exploded from her palms. A shield, dome-shaped and shimmering like moonlight on water, formed around Nikolai. Marcus's blade struck it and bounced off, the force of the impact sending him staggering backward. Inside the shield, Nikolai collapsed to his knees, sobbing but safe. Impossible, Serena breathed. That power, you're not supposed to be that strong. The witch said you were barely awakened. The witch was wrong. Aria's voice didn't sound like her own, it was layered with something else, something ancient and powerful. The moon goddess's touch, perhaps, blessing her chosen vessel. I am moon-blessed. I am the Alpha King's true mate. And you will not harm this child. Marcus's face contorted with rage. You should have stayed broken. You were supposed to be weak, controllable, nothing. He shifted into his wolf form, huge and gray and snarling. I rejected you because I felt it, that power sleeping inside you. I knew if I mated with you, you'd overshadow me. Everyone would look at you instead of me. So I broke you before you could break me. The confession hit Aria like a physical blow. All these years, she'd thought there was something wrong with her, something that made her unworthy. But Marcus had rejected her out of fear. Out of pathetic, insecure fear. You didn't break me, Aria said, and her own wolf pushed forward, demanding to be free. You just made me stronger. She shifted, and this time it was effortless, smooth as water, natural as breathing. Her silvery white wolf stood between Nikolai's shield and Marcus's snarling form, smaller but absolutely unafraid. Behind her, she heard Darius shift too, heard the sounds of fighting as guards engaged Serena's supporters. But her focus was entirely on Marcus. This was personal. This was 3 years of pain and shame and broken pieces. And she was going to end it. Marcus lunged, all snapping teeth and vicious claws. But Aria was faster. The moon-blessed power sang through her veins, making her movements liquid, preternatural. She dodged his attack and countered with one of her own, her smaller size making her agile where he was powerful. They fought in a circle around Nikolai's shield, wolf against wolf, past against present. Marcus fought with rage and desperation. Aria fought with purpose and newfound strength. He's off balance, her wolf told her. Uses power over technique. Predictable. Aria watched Marcus's patterns, learning his tells. When he lunged again, she was ready. She dropped low, letting his momentum carry him over her, then twisted and caught his throat in her jaws. Not hard enough to kill. Just hard enough to end it. Marcus went still, whimpering in submission. Aria held him for a moment longer, letting him feel what she'd felt all those years ago, helpless, defeated, at someone else's mercy. Then she released him and shifted back to human form. Guards immediately grabbed Marcus, hauling his wolf form away in silver chains that prevented shifting. You were right about one thing, Aria said quietly as they dragged him past. I was going to overshadow you. Because I was always stronger than you could ever be. You just didn't want to see it. Across the grounds, she saw Darius in human form again, his hand around Serena's throat. His cousin looked small and pathetic without her magic, which had been stripped away by the High Priestess's counterspell. Any last words? Darius asked, his voice like ice. You'll regret this, Serena spat. My son. Your son will be raised far from here, away from your poison, with a chance to be better than you ever were. Darius's claws extended. But you? You threatened my child. You betrayed your pack. You practiced dark magic. There's only one sentence for traitors. He was going to do it here, now, in front of everyone. Execute her as both punishment and warning. Darius. Arya's voice stopped him. She walked forward, still glowing faintly with silver light, and put a hand on his arm. Let the law handle her. Don't carry this blood on your hands. Something shifted in his expression. He looked at her, really looked, and whatever he saw there made him nod slowly. Take her to the dungeons, he told the guards. She'll stand trial in the morning and be executed according to pack law. Publicly. Officially. His voice rose, addressing the assembled nobles. Let it be known throughout the kingdom, the penalty for treason, for threatening the heir, for practicing dark magic, is death. No exceptions. No mercy. The guards dragged Serena away, her screams fading into the distance. Arya released the shield around Nikolai, and the little prince immediately ran to her, wrapping his arms around her waist. You saved me again, he said, his voice muffled against her ceremonial gown. You're so brave. The bravest person I know. Arya knelt down, brushing his dark hair back from his face. You were very brave too. You didn't panic. You trusted I would come. I always trust you. His smile was pure innocence. You're going to be my new mama, right? Papa said you were going to be queen. The question made her heart clench. She looked up at Darius, who was watching them with an expression so tender it made her breath catch. If you'll have me, she said softly. I know I can't replace your birth mother. But I promise to love you like you're my own. I want you, Nikolai said firmly. You're perfect. The high priestess cleared her throat, reminding them that hundreds of wolves were still watching. Well. That was dramatic. But if everyone's quite finished trying to kill each other, we have a ceremony to complete. Laughter rippled through the crowd, shocked, relieved laughter that broke the tension like a thunderclap. They returned to the stone circle, and this time, no one interrupted. The high priestess continued the ceremony, her voice steady. We have witnessed this woman's strength. We have seen her protect our heir with her own body, defeat her enemies with courage, and show mercy when vengeance would be easier. She turned to the assembled nobles. Does anyone here challenge her right to be Luna Queen? Silence. Beautiful, perfect silence. Then let us proceed. The priestess took the Luna crown from where it had fallen during the chaos. But before she could place it on Arya's head, Nikolai stepped forward. Can I do it? He asked. Please. I want to crown her. The priestess looked at Darius, who nodded with a smile. She handed the crown to Nikolai carefully, steadying his small hands as he lifted it high. I crown you Queen Arya, Nikolai said solemnly, placing the silver crown on her head. Because you saved me and because you're the best. Then he added a flower crown he'd been hiding, slightly crushed moonblooms woven together with childish enthusiasm, placing it on top of the formal crown. And this one is from me, he announced. Because queens should have lots of crowns. Arya felt tears slide down her cheeks. She pulled Nikolai into a hug as the assembled wolves erupted in applause and howls of acceptance. When she stood, Darius was there, offering his hand. Together they faced the pack, their pack now, united. My queen, Darius said, loud enough for everyone to hear. My true mate. My forever. He kissed her then, deep and claiming and full of promise. The mate bond blazed between them, and Arya felt her wolf sing with pure joy. When they broke apart, Darius addressed the crowd. Tonight, under the full moon, I formally claim Arya Thorne as my mate and your queen. Anyone who disrespects her disrespects me. Anyone who threatens her threatens the kingdom. She is moon-blessed, chosen by the goddess herself, and I am honored beyond measure that she chose me in return." The applause was deafening. Later that night, after the ceremony had ended and the last guest had departed, Arya and Darius stood alone in the palace gardens. The full moon still hung overhead, blessing them with silver light. "Ready?" Darius asked, offering his hand. Arya took it, her heart racing. They'd completed the formal ceremony, but this, completing the mate bond under the moon, was the final step. The one that would tie them together forever. More than ready. They shifted together, wolf calling to wolf, and ran through the gardens into the forest beyond. The bond hummed between them, growing stronger with each stride, until finally they stopped in a moonlit clearing. When they came together, it wasn't just physical. It was the bond snapping into place completely, soul to soul, heart to heart. Arya felt everything, Darius's love, his devotion, his absolute commitment to her and their future. And she gave him the same in return. When they finally shifted back to human form, wrapped in each other's arms beneath the moon, the bond between them was solid and unbreakable. "I love you," Darius murmured against her hair. "My queen. My mate. My everything." "I love you too," Arya whispered. "Thank you for seeing me when everyone else looked away. Thank you for saving my son. For saving me." He pulled back to look at her, his gray eyes reflecting moonlight. "What do you want to do with this power? This platform? You're queen now. You can make real change." Arya thought about all the broken wolves she'd known. The ones who'd been rejected, abused, cast aside. The ones who thought they could never be whole again. "I want to build something," she said slowly. "A sanctuary for wolves like I was. Broken, or who think they're broken. A place where they can heal, where they can learn they're not defective just because they've been hurt. Where Omegas especially can be safe." Darius smiled. "Then we'll build it. Whatever you need. However much it costs. Consider it your first official act as queen." They stayed there until dawn, talking and planning and simply being together. When they finally returned to the palace, Arya felt lighter than she had in years. She wasn't broken. She never had been. She was exactly who she needed to be. 6 months later. Arya stood in the gardens watching Darius play with Nikolai, the two of them racing in circles while the little prince shrieked with laughter. Her hand rested unconsciously on her still flat stomach, where a tiny new life was just beginning to grow. The sanctuary was nearly complete, a beautiful compound on the edge of the palace grounds where wolves could come to heal. She'd personally overseen every detail, making sure it felt warm and safe and nothing like the cold institutions most packs relegated their broken members to. And tomorrow, the first residents would arrive. "You're glowing," Beta Marcus said, appearing beside her with a knowing smile. "I'm guessing we'll have an announcement soon." Arya blushed. "Don't say anything yet. I want to tell Darius tonight. Your secret's safe with me." He paused. "For what it's worth, you've exceeded every expectation. The pack loves you. The kingdom loves you. And you've given hope to wolves who thought they had none left. That's no small thing." "I just wanted to help people like me," Arya said softly. "You did more than help. You transformed what it means to be an Omega in this kingdom. You proved strength comes in many forms." He nodded toward Darius and Nikolai. "And you gave them something they needed desperately, a family." As if sensing her attention, Darius looked up and smiled, his whole face transforming with joy. He said something to Nikolai, then both of them ran toward her. "Mama." Nikolai had started calling her that a month ago, and it still made her heart overflow every time. "Papa says we can have cake for lunch if you say yes." "Does he now?" Arya raised an eyebrow at Darius, who tried to look innocent and failed completely. "I said we could discuss cake for lunch," Darius amended, pulling her close with one arm while keeping the other around Nikolai. "Big difference." Arya pretended to consider. "I suppose, since it's a beautiful day and I have good news." "Good news?" Darius's eyes lit up. Tell me. Later. She kissed his cheek. When little ears aren't listening. Understanding dawned in his expression, followed by wonder and fierce joy. Through their bond, she felt his wolf practically vibrating with excitement. Then yes, he said hoarsely. Definitely yes to cake for lunch. And dinner. And breakfast tomorrow if you want. Nikolai cheered and ran off toward the kitchens, leaving them alone for a moment. A pup? Darius asked quietly, his hand joining hers on her stomach. A pup, Arya confirmed. Are you happy? Happy doesn't begin to cover it. He kissed her softly. You've given me everything, Arya. Everything I didn't even know I was missing. We gave each other everything, she corrected. That's how this works. They stood together in the sunshine, watching Nikolai return with a triumphant expression and 3 palace staff carrying trays of cake. Her past felt like a distant dream, all the pain and rejection and breaking had led her exactly here. To this moment. This family. This love. Her wolf purred with absolute contentment, curled up with her mate's wolf in the bond they shared, both of them watching over the life growing inside her. She'd been tested by fire and darkness and cruelty. She'd been broken down and built back up. And she'd emerged stronger, braver, and more certain of her worth than ever before. The moon goddess had known exactly what she was doing. Epilogue. In a place beyond mortal sight. The witch who had helped Marcus and Serena knelt before the moon goddess, her head bowed in submission. She'd been brought here immediately after her arrest, pulled from her cell by forces beyond understanding. Do you know why you're here? The goddess's voice was everywhere and nowhere, ancient as time itself. To be punished for my crimes, the witch whispered. No. The goddess materialized, a figure of pure silver light in the shape of a wolf, eyes holding the wisdom of millennia. You are here to learn the truth. The truth that you were never truly helping Serena and Marcus. You were helping me. The witch's head snapped up. What? I needed to test my chosen vessel, Arya. I needed to ensure she was strong enough, brave enough, selfless enough to bear the responsibility of being moon-blessed. The goddess's voice was gentle now. So I arranged circumstances. I let dark magic touch my child, let her be broken and rejected and cast aside. I watched as she survived what would have destroyed a lesser soul. And when she was ready, when she had learned compassion through suffering and strength through survival, I put her exactly where she needed to be. The storm, the witch breathed. You. I allowed you to summon it. But I guided it, shaped it, ensured it would bring my chosen ones together. The goddess moved closer. Marcus Steele rejected Arya because he sensed her power and feared it. That rejection broke her bond with her wolf, or seemed to. In truth, I simply quieted it. Let it sleep until the moment she would need it most. To save the prince. To save herself first. To remember she was never broken, just dormant. And then yes, to save the prince, proving her heart was pure. The goddess's eyes glowed brighter. You played your part perfectly, little witch. You gave Arya enemies to overcome, obstacles to conquer, a crucible to burn away her doubts. And now? The goddess waved her paw, and images appeared in the air, Arya laughing with Nikolai, standing beside Darius at council meetings, cutting the ribbon at her sanctuary's opening, cradling her swollen belly months from now. Now she is everything I needed her to be. Queen. Luna. Mother. Healer. And her bloodline, the goddess's smile was transcendent, her bloodline will be blessed for generations. Her children and her children's children will carry the moon-blessed gift, will stand as protectors and healers and lights in the darkness. What happens to me? The witch asked quietly. You have a choice. Accept punishment under mortal law for the crimes you committed, knowing they served a higher purpose but were still crimes. Or, the goddess's eyes twinkled, accept a different fate. Become my servant, working to guide other lost souls toward their destinies. The path will not be easy. You will face dangers, make sacrifices, live between the mortal and divine worlds. But you will serve a greater good. The witch thought of the Omega Queen, of the strength and grace she'd witnessed. If her suffering had led to such light. I'll serve, she said. Whatever you need. I'll serve. Good. The goddess's form began to fade. Then go now, and know that every hardship has purpose. Every broken thing can be made whole. And love, true love, blessed by the moon, is worth any trial. The witch found herself back in the mortal world, but changed. Marked by the goddess, tasked with holy purpose. And in the palace, Arya felt a warmth wash over her, the goddess's final blessing, acknowledging her servant's choice and rewarding Arya's faithfulness. What is it? Darius asked, feeling her shift through their bond. Nothing, Arya said, but she smiled. Everything. Just, grateful. She looked at her family, Darius, Nikolai, and the tiny life growing inside her, and felt the weight of divine purpose settling on her shoulders like a mantle. She'd been tested. She'd been tried. She'd been broken and rebuilt. And now, she would help others do the same. The moon goddess had chosen well. And Arya would spend the rest of her life proving herself worthy of that choice. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe, like and share this video to continue listening to this type of story daily and also, to appreciate this community too. I would like to hear your wonderful opinion about this story. Please comment below.